what's up, everybody? Welcome back to Call the Damn Leads, the show by sales professionals for sales professionals. I'm your host, Drewbie Wilson, with more than 2 decades in the industry. I've been through it, seen it, heard about it. Now I'm bringing it to you, my favorite people in the world, the sales community. Because let's be honest, this is the greatest job on earth. Doesn't matter where you come from, what background, what personality, you can make an amazing life for yourself in sales. And today's guest, no stranger to that journey. He's my new friend, Mr. Robert Hunt. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much.
I appreciate you hanging out with us, man. And so, I always like to just jump right in. You've been in the game a long time. What's your craziest sales story?
Oh, I had started working for a company that sold woven fiberglass fabric. I mean, you can't get any more boring and technical at the same time. And I remember I was replacing Dick Sanger, who's this old guy who was going to retire, hence the name Dick. And he was just this old cat. And he took me to his number one client, and we were going to have lunch with her. And I walk in and I hand my business card, and she throws it on the ground. It says, "Now pick it up and put your home number on there." And I was like, looking at Dick, like, is this like a joke? Is this something that, like, you're just like, what do I do? And so I picked it up, put my home phone number on. That began a relationship with her that was 5 years long. It was hell. She was brutal. She was offensive and horrible and mean. And she just owned everybody. She called herself the bitch from England. That was her definition. She would call herself that. I agreed. And so it was just this craziness. And I remember many times just saying, "Hey, I'm not going to put up with your profanity. When you want to talk, call me back." And I'd hang up, and she would call me back relentlessly. "Pick up that damn phone." It was just this angry, brutal thing. Finally, she got busted for taking a bribe, which wasn't a surprise to anybody. But it just was this baptism by fire. I had been a sales guy in a different role, sort of. I did sales and marketing. And I would go to big corporations like Boeing and Douglas, and I would pitch our product coming in from Europe, and they pretty much wanted it. So I really didn't sell. I just took orders, So I got to that moment. It was like, do I want to do this job? It was brutal.
I've met a lot of professionals over the years, though, that have had to take on that identity. I've actually seen and met a lot of people who have encouraged folks to step into that alter ego. There's a great book. I forget what it might even be called, Alter Ego. And it's been a while since I saw it, so you'd have to look it up. But stepping into that confidence, that ability to run things and to take control of situations can be very powerful, can also be very off-putting in the wrong situation, as it seems you experienced. What I would love to know, though, is having dealt with someone like that very early on in your career, how did it prepare you for running into future clients and prospects that, kind of run the spectrum on either
Yeah.
side?
Yeah. It really challenged me to think about who am I? You cannot turn off and on very well a different alternate personality when you go from one client to another. And God forbid they're at an event together. This was a printed circuit board market, and everybody knew everybody. I had 8 clients. I did $48 million a year in sales, and I sold it by like $2 a linear yard. So that's a lot of fabric. It's a lot of fiberglass. And they're all at the same conferences. We're all booths apart. And so, you can't be one person one place and another person another place. And so I really struggled with that because, part of me wanted to just punch her, or part of me wanted to play the game like Dick did for a lot of years, where he took her to expensive concerts and always took her to lunch with martinis at lunch. And I'm not drinking in the middle of the day. I don't mind having a beer, but I'm not going to do it at noon and pretend like I'm working the rest of the day. I know that can be done, but so it was just like this weird challenge for me. Who am I going to be? And I really decided I have to be me. I got to be me. And I'm a born again Christian. My faith is a big deal to me. I have a loving wife. I got kids. I'm not a foul mouthed person. And so I can't just up my game and be someone else. And I can't just roll over and let her walk on me. So I just had to say, "Hey, I'm sorry you're frustrated. If you want to call me back when you're ready to have a conversation, we can talk." And I'd hang up. And I just kept being myself and not getting elevated. But it was hard. There were so many times I wanted to knock her out, at the very least to swear and to, play the game that I just wasn't going to get sucked in. It was a hard couple of years. I think it took me till probably 3 years before I really felt like I could be who I wanted to be in every situation, in every moment. But it was a great learning experience, man. It's like boot camp. You survive, or you get better, or you die.
Yeah, and I think something you said there is really important in being who you are, being authentic, being genuine. That certainly stands out as something that builds trust when you're in that prospect client relationship, trying to get to that point. And also, I would believe that at a certain level, you have, even with your, strong faith and all of the things that you subscribe to, your values, you've also, in a sense, learned how to lean in and somewhat be more along what they're looking for, but without breaking that boundary you've created. And
Yeah,
that's a
you can
really
connect.
important key to take away.
You connect without giving in. I mean, I can talk and understand, but I'm not going to mirror her attitude. I'm not going to be like her. But I didn't get all, well, you're swearing. You got to be real. That's not everyone's like you, and that's okay. But yeah, I think there is that time where you start to decide, who am I going to be in my career. I think there was a lot of moments like that when I had a lunch with a guy from Korea who told me I could give you lots of things if you can lower the price. I was also selling Kevlar for bulletproof vests, and he wanted the Kevlar for the entire army of Korea, South Korea, by the way. And we're having lunch in LA at this restaurant, and he's telling me, I can take care of you. I'm like, yeah, my company takes care of me. No, I mean, I could take care of you. And I was like, no, no, thank you. But it would have been very easy to take some wicked bribe, uh, because it was normal. That was just kind of how stuff in his country does. He didn't do it with an unethical mindset. That's just how you roll in other countries. And so here I am dealing with this guy. Well, that's not how we roll in America. Not how you're supposed to roll in America. So again, you come back to those moments where you decide, well, who am I going to be? I got to be who I am.
I love that. And I think it's important to remember that this is one of the reasons that sales as a profession has a lot of back and forth. People are either really for them or they really hate sales professionals, because there is that level of, oh, well, we've seen all the greasy movies and all the people that do the bribes and the different things. And at a certain level, that is how things get done, unfortunately. This is just the real world. That's how things operate. And also, you mentioned there are ways that we can operate within our values and boundaries and know that we still get to live an amazing life and do amazing things with amazing people, and not have to break those ethics and not have to go past that line. And I think for a lot of younger professionals, that is a skill set that you develop. It is a process that you go through multiple times where you're tested almost, just to make sure that you're maintaining, because there's always a big test before the level up, right? Before you
Well,
graduate to the next grade, you got to pass that big test.
what's the line there? I mean, let's say I take someone to dinner and we have a good meeting. Am I bribing them? If I give them a bag of money, here's a bag, here's $10,000. That seems pretty clearly to be a bribe. But if I take him to dinner, am I bribing him? Well, if I take him to dinner in Vegas on a private jet and pay for his hotel, and all these things, is that a bribe? So I have clients who take their clients deer hunting. And they'll go out for a week somewhere, and they provide everything, and they set them up. Is that a bribe? It's like taking someone golfing. Is that a bribe? So I look at it like this: as a salesperson, you have to be comfortable with the way the company's doing business. I
Mm.
think I get the chance to give them. I get a chance to get a second chance for the company when we screw up because of my relationship with my clients. When they were pissed because we blatantly did something wrong, they would call me and they'd say, "This is wrong," and they'd get all mad. And I'd say, "Yeah, all right, let me get on it. I'll take care of it." And then that was it. They just wanted to get it off their chest and move on. But they gave me a second chance because they cared about me and we had a friendship. I still had to make good product. I still had to have prices that were fair. They still expected me to fix it, but I got the chance to not just say, "Screw you, I'll never see you again," because of the relationship we built over a 4-hour golf game or over seats at the Laker game. And that time you spend together is where you're building that relationship. So without that bribe, as we would label it, maybe, I wouldn't have the chance to have the second chance. So I don't know. It is one of those things that you have to be really clear as to what the line looks like to you.
I love that. And I always talk about success being a perspective, and, what my version is going to be different than yours and is definitely different than the listeners. But I also love the idea of, hey, the perspective of where is the line for you? What do you consider to be okay, not okay? You and I both know that at a high level, when you're playing at that level of the game, money is not something that people think about. So to spend a bunch of it to take someone out and show them a good time, to entertain them, to make them feel appreciated and celebrated so that they're, let's just say, encouraged to make a decision. I mean, everyone's going to draw that line. Where are you at personally, professionally? And there are levels to the game, which is what we were talking about. And what I really like there is everyone's going to find their version. They're going to find their line. And in
Yeah.
the journey of sales, what I would like to know for you, Robert, what would you say has kind of become like your secret superpower? What makes you different than all the other folks out there in the sales world?
I think I'm a really great listener. I think in my business, in the current business I do today, I work with business owners and CEOs, and you don't ever sell them anything. They either need what you want, what you have, or they don't. And so what I'm trying to do is to listen for those pain points. I followed the Sandler method of sales, and I'm really a big fan of the technique. All always along, I was able to get along with people, talk to people. Hey, how's it going? That kind of thing is easy for me. But the process to create clarity was never something I was good at. I would just sit and talk with them for a long period of time and never get any clarity and never move it along. And so I needed a tool that would help us both understand where we're going. They call it mutual mystification, which is what happens when you're just got this thing, oh, we're just going to hang out and talk and somehow you're going to give me business. That didn't work that way. And business leaders, they're like, hey, why are you here? Let's get to the point. Even if they're really relational, they also have very little time and they got to be home with their family. And so us just sitting there shooting the cheese is not going to be the thing that's going to get the order. So until I really learned how to listen well, ask the right questions and listen well, and then ask another question and I also play dumb very well. I don't need to be the smart guy. I think when I was younger, I really felt that I needed to prove myself. It's interesting how that worked. My first job out of college, I worked at an ad agency, and then I went into a sales role, the sales and marketing. And I would go to Boeing and Douglas with all these old guys who were ties were up to here. They were big old dorks in a suit, and I would go in there knowing nothing about anything. At that point, I was selling Nomex honeycomb core, which goes into aerospace stuff. And I remember walking in there and just having a few key words and just being real and being kind and not having to think about working my stuff. Hey, I got this stuff. You guys want to buy it? And they would give me orders. And so that was my start into the sales role. But then when I got into the fiberglass sales, it was really cutthroat and it really required a process into it. And so in that way, though, I really wasn't going out door to door or having to hunt. I was a farmer. I maintained those 8 customers for 15 years. And so then I got to where I own my own business, and now I'm actually selling. Now I'm actually going to look for something, hunting it down, pitching it, qualifying it, all that stuff. I do all that. And I find that right now, just being a really great listener is the magic tool.
I really appreciate that. And I think that there's a lot of ways we can go with that, but I think one thing you said that I want to touch on just from personal experience, A, having been an employee for a number of years, and B, working with entrepreneurs, business owners, consulting, inside of businesses with teams. Most leaders, they don't want to be told what to do. They want it to be their idea. And so I love how you mentioned, hey, what questions are you asking? Because when you're asking the right questions, it's
Yeah.
getting the individual to literally tell themselves and think, this is really the thing that I should be doing right
Yeah.
now.
Yeah.
And if you're asking questions, the thing that you have to do, and what most professionals forget to do, is just listen. And I
Yeah.
love how you keep leaning in on, I just listen to what they're saying, because in the end, if you're listening, you're learning, and if you're learning, you can help them solve their problem. And for the most part, there's always one, maybe two problems that they're really dealing with, that if you can
Right.
get to that, then you can help them move forward with the transaction. And a lot of the times, as you said, not trying to overtalk them, not trying to be smarter than they were, which when we're young and egotistical and think we know everything, that's a
Or
skill we have
nervous.
to acquire. Yeah,
Yeah.
nervous for sure.
Yeah.
Um, so with that, you're at a point now where you've started your own business. You're consulting and working with, high level professionals. What was the shift for you to go say, hey, you know what? I've been in the game a long time. I want to go and teach others now how to follow these processes and to inject them into their own lives and business.
Well, in my role as a coach, I don't tell anyone what to do. I ask them what they want to do and I help them get it done. So when I go meet with a business owner, they're doing $70 million a year. They're not looking at me, hey, what should I do? It doesn't work that way. And I have replaced the quest of trying to look smart with the quest of helping someone self discover. And when I look at those moments and go, I want them to self discover their answer. Because when you self discover your own answer, you're more likely to do it than anything else. And if I say, well, you really need to do this, they're like, what do you know? You're just this guy. But if I ask enough questions, I go, what would you want to do? How come that's not working? What other things did you try? How long did that take? Who else could you talk to? And as I ask questions, I'm sort of directing them by my questions. But at the end of the day, I really want to find joy when they go, I need to be in a peer group. I need to do this for me. This is what I need. And I'm like, well, I happen to have one right here, but you tee it up by the questions you ask. And I really have found more joy in asking questions and letting them self discover than being found smart.
Yeah, it's as I look over leadership and mentors, and I've become more of a mentor and a leader in my own life. It's funny how we reach that point where we're giving away all the answers, and we still can't figure out why people aren't getting the result. And we're going, what? I've given you the blueprint, you have the resources, the tools. What's going on here? But when you shift into just asking them those prompting questions,
Right.
the exponential growth. It's
Yeah.
crazy to watch the light bulbs and the gears, and they're going, "Did you?" And they start asking you questions, and that's when
Haven't
you
you ever
really
been in those
know.
moments before where someone's clearly trying to sell to you and you're like, dude, why are you selling to me? Like you'll get off the airplane in Cabo and someone will say, hey, where you guys vacationing? Where do you need a ride to they want to pitch you. They want you to come to their timeshare, right? And so they start asking these questions. And even at the timeshare, they're asking these questions in such a way that well, doesn't your beautiful wife deserve a vacation every year? All these things that they do to try and guilt you into something. And I just think, well, if you're going to look for pain or need, but pain is a better word, you got to ask questions. You got to really truly have a hunger for knowledge. And I think that people don't even know their own answer. So you setting them free instead of trying to throw all the answers you have, which just makes you look dumb because you're giving me answers to stuff I don't care about. Why are you talking about price? I don't care about the price. I want to know about availability. I want to know if it comes in my flavor. I want to know that you stand behind your warranty. Here you are thinking you're so smart by throwing out, you're vomiting all this knowledge on them and you're already overwhelming them. Turn it off, boy, turn it off. I think that us just being on the quest to say, how do I meet someone and as fast as possible help them discover their own questions? By my questions, they start to go, I don't have a good replacement source for this, or, it's been a long time since we saw what else is in the market. You have to be a good question asker.
When you think about asking questions and you're working with your clients and you're teaching them this process, let's get tactical. What are one or two things that someone can do right now to ask better questions?
Yeah, be a genuinely inquisitive person. I think when you start to think you know everything, you don't need to ask questions. But when you really step back and realize how much you don't know, because you really don't know, the world is constantly changing. Every single client I go to does something different. It's construction, it's healthcare, it's IT, it's staffing. Everything is different. So, how on earth could you ask the right question? Or how could you know enough about any topic to not look like an idiot? And so I think when you just get into this mindset that just says the Socratic method, Socrates had this great way of just asking questions and asking questions with the mindset of finding truth. And I think in light of the fact that I really don't know everything and I can't, I just take it takes the heat off. Think about how freeing that is to go in and just to enjoy the journey of I'm asking some questions and they're generic enough questions that it meets everything, but then they help me drill down based on the questions that they come up with in response to my questions. Well, I had never thought of that. Well, what would you do to think that through? I just love those moments where you're not trying to work them over. Look, if you don't believe in what you're selling or doing, you should go get another job. But if you really believe in what you're doing, all you're trying to do is get to the point where you can bless them. And I don't think peer groups are for everybody. These are for people who really want to be genuinely transparent and get help from other experienced leaders. And so there's very few people who don't have a who can put their ego in check enough to get into a room with a bunch of other leaders and not try and look like they're the king of the world. So it's very rare that I find these people. So I have to ask enough questions to be able to hunt that down. And I think that you just realizing that they probably don't know the question that you're going to ask them. You don't know what you didn't know until you realize you didn't know it. And so I
Mm.
think going in there with a mindset that says, well, what's important to you? What do you want to do? When you look back 5 years from now, some of these things are kind of used a lot. When you look back 5 years from now, what are you going to see? But they're the starting point because it does matter. If you want to raise your kids to be good adults, you got to have a plan. You want to have a marriage that you enjoy, you got to have a plan. How about a retirement? You got to have a plan. So I think if you help people step back long enough to go, what's your plan? And let them think, and you just kind of move them along. It's not only a more enjoyable process, but they don't feel like you're working them over.
I love the idea of guiding. When I was young and full of ego and thought I knew everything, I worked at a place called Cardinal Health, and basically took radioactive isotopes and combined them with these chemicals, and we sent them off to different hospitals and stuff. And I thought it was like the coolest job ever. And there was one guy that was the main pharmacist. His name was Gary, and we basically called him Yoda because he had been in the game for like 30 years, had all the knowledge we thought. And one of the most important things he ever taught me was the wisest men on earth don't have the answer to every question, but they know where to start looking for them.
Yeah.
And that to me is where peer groups can truly shine because A, when you're in the right peer group with the right people having the right conversations, you can be vulnerable and admit that you don't know certain things. And
Yeah.
as a leader, entrepreneur, owner, a lot of times you get to a point where you're almost like, I don't want to admit that I don't know because all of these people are trusting me to lead them, and I don't want them to feel like we're lost.
Yeah.
Would you
Yeah.
say that that's pretty common?
Oh, the imposter syndrome is what a lot of people refer to that. And this is the hard truth. If you're the owner of a company or CEO, you cannot possibly know everything, because you have to know a lot of stuff. I mean, just take a topic of cybersecurity or tax law or HR law. And even with a really good intention and you're smart and you make the best widget out there, you could still get sued for saying nothing. It's just God bless America. That's just how it is. And so the pressure that these people feel is unbelievable. And so when you get in a peer group and you surround yourself with people who have no emotion to your problem, they're not worried or offended when you say, well, we think we may have some cutbacks. Well, you tell it to your employees, they're going to start sharpening up their resume, start looking around.
Mm-hmm.
You tell your family members, oh, money's pretty tight. They start worrying, are we going to go broke? Can we lose our house? No, I'm just saying we got to watch our cash for a month or two. So being in a room where you have people who aren't attached to your problem, and then really being truly vulnerable is the only way you can have the power of a peer group. I wrote the book, Nobody Cares Until You Do, which is all about accountability. Because after watching my clients for these last 11 years in the peer group moments where they say real honest challenges, I do not know what I'm doing here. And then the whole group says, well, what have you done? How did you try? What else have you done? And then we help them self discover, just like we do in the sales process. You have this situation. Let's get you to where you go, oh, you know what I should do? And everyone knows that because we're not blinded by the emotion of your problem. We don't have any emotion to the outcome or anything, but we don't want to say, you got to fire that guy. We want you to make that decision, but we think that's the obvious one. So I just watched this whole journey of accountability, and it all starts with real vulnerability. And that's what you find in a peer group that allows you to get the kind of information you need to succeed, but you got to be super vulnerable.
And that's one of the reasons that I love this show in particular for me is that I get a chance to speak with people who've been down the path, who have had the experiences, made the mistakes, and are willing to be vulnerable and share these stories and talk about, hey, this is what happened. This is what it cost me. These are the things that occurred as a consequence of me thinking that I had the greatest idea on earth. Turns out, here's what I couldn't see, because you don't know
Mm.
what you know until you know, and then you have to make some different decisions. And the one thing I know, Robert, is that you and I could probably sit here and nerd out and chat about this stuff for eternity. But I want to be respectful of your time because I know how valuable it is. I know the listener is going, I got so much I've already learned today. Like, I've got to go implement this so that I can go learn more. So when they're ready, and for me personally, how can we come and find you? How can we check out your book? How can we learn a little bit more about some of the processes you share? Because I know there's a lot more gold in that brain of yours.
Yeah. Yeah. The book is called Nobody Cares Until You Do, and it's nobodycaresbook.com. And you can buy the book there, and we'll send you a note with it and get you involved in our community. But we really want to help people to find the freedom and power and accountability. If you're in sales, you know what it's like. You either sell or you don't. And if you're fully, salaried sales, you still got numbers they're expecting you to hit. So accountability is one of those things that it's not responsibility, it's accountability. And we could go into this another time about the difference, but a lot of salespeople fail because they're responsible. They're doing something, but you're supposed to be accountable. You're supposed to do the right thing. And that's a big difference. So I'm on LinkedIn. You can find me at REF Dallas. That's my company website where I do my peer groups and my executive coaching, and I take these principles and do workshops and retreats and all that good stuff. For your particular podcast, I got a new URL called nobodycarespod.com. And if people go there and they fill out the form and they put the code word leads, I will mail a copy of my book at no cost so that they can have a copy. If they really want to read it and they're really going to commit to change their lives, I would be honored to mail out 2 copies of my book to the first 2 people who come and fill out that form. And then I'll copy you on it so you can meet some of your followers.
I truly appreciate that offer. That means the world to me, and my audience, I know, is the kind of people that are going to hear this and go, "Shoot, nobody does care, but I do, and I care
Right.
about growth." And I think it's awesome that you have the book out there and you're making that offer available to my community. So thank you, thank you, thank you again, man. I know that we could probably sit here all day, and someday I hope when I pass through Dallas again that we get a chance to meet up
Yeah.
and have some conversations in person, because the one thing I know, when you're in the right room with the right people, having the right conversations, the right things will start happening. And today has been the right conversation for me. And I truly am grateful for you taking a little time to be here with us today.
Thanks so much. This was fun.
You got it. Well, if you like the show, make sure you follow Robert. Go check out his book, Nobody Cares Until You Do. And then share the episode. Tell people about it. Subscribe. Leave us a review. Do all the things that help us get in front of more amazing sales professionals like you so that we can continue to call the damn leads, share the damn stories, and have a good time. By the way, if you have a story to share, head over to callthedamnleads.com/podcast. Send us your information. We'd love to bring you on the show, because this is the greatest career ever, and you can do some pretty cool stuff, just like Robert did, writing a book about nobody cares until you do. Make sure you check it out. Go follow Robert. We'll see you guys on the next one. Take care, y'all.